Weapons in Space. Robert Bowman, a 22-year Air Force veteran, directed all the Star Wars programs under Presidents Ford and Carter. With the support of the Joint Chiefs of Staff, Bowman is taught at 5 colleges and universities. He is the presiding Archbishop of the United Catholic Church and is the president of the Institute for Space and Security Studies.
All you really have to know about my background is a couple of things. One, PhD from Caltech in Aeronautics and Nuclear Engineering means I am a scientist. I have worked in the space industry. I understand the technology of these things. Secondly, as a career military officer, I had 101 combat missions in Vietnam, and toward the end of my career, I directed all of the Star Wars programs under Ford and Carter when their existence was secret. I directed these programs from 76 to 78. Important thing to know about what is going on today is under George II, everything has changed. What are all these weapons for? Why are we preparing to spend hundreds of trillions of dollars for weapons that can't possibly protect us from an attack? The answer is same as it was under President Reagan. We have no intention. This government of ours, George W. Bush, has no intention of being an innocent party. Their intention is to be the aggressor. Star Wars has nothing to do with defense. It's a set of offensive weapons disguised as defense. The whole thing of the peace shield was a smokescreen for public consumption. They reward whoever shoots first, and that's why the ABM Treaty banned them, to initiate the conflict and to have these weapons with the element of surprise on our side, because we know when we're going to attack, then having these weapons ready to be useful in possibly shielding ourselves against part of the retaliation that would be sent against us. By the way, that is precisely why the ABM Treaty outlawed all these weapons, outlawed a national missile defense, outlawed ballistic missile defense weapons in space or in the air or on ships at sea or even land-based interceptors if they were mobile, because such systems do nothing for innocent parties but could be useful to an aggressor. Why then is the government doing this? Why do we want to be an aggressor? Well, under Reagan, it was a honestly felt belief that war with the Soviet Union was inevitable. Edward Teller told me that. He told Ronald Reagan that. And he said, so we may as well win it. I was incensed with President Clinton for resurrecting Star Wars and with the Democrats in Congress for caving in to the demand for a resurrection of national missile defense. But I got to tell you, didn't think Bush could be much worse, but he is. The system that Bush and Cheney are promoting would cost $5 trillion, according to Pentagon estimates. This system brings with it enormous dangers. It violates every paragraph of the ABM Treaty. This is something very different technologically, strategically, financially, morally. He is funding the resurrection of stations of the Star Wars system that I directed in the 1970s. The ABM Treaty was an attempt to outlaw a class of weapons which would reward an aggressor and therefore promote nuclear war. The kind of ballistic missile defense envisioned by the Bush administration, which they're quietly going forward with, without really telling the American public what's going on, is exactly the kind of system that is useful only to an aggressor. It's totally useless to an innocent party sitting back, waiting for an attack, hoping to protect himself. And that's because the weapons in this system, President Bush plans for, this requires not weapons here in the United States attempting to defend ourselves from re-entering warheads, but weapons spread around the world, at sea, in the air, and in space, funding the Navy to put interceptors on ships at sea to be stationed in the South China Sea, the Mediterranean, and the Persian Gulf. He is funding the Air Force to a tune of a couple of $100 billion being spent this year to put laser weapons in 747 aircraft to circle at the borders of Russia, China, places like North Korea and Iran. They want the ability to thumb their noses at the rest of the world. If you do that, we're going to nuke you. I have an internal Heritage Foundation document. We are going to steal the moral high ground from the nuclear freeze movement. We are going to couch our proposals in language attacking mutual assured destruction. And with high-minded phrases, we're going to destroy the nuclear freeze movement. They did. We are now in a situation where our commander is resurrecting the same program with the same objectives. Now, why, since we already have an overwhelming military superiority, do they feel they need these as well? And the answer is, this comes again from their own internal conversations. There is opposition to our actions in the world, to the kind of actions that we have taken in Central America, in Bosnia, in Kosovo, in the Middle East, Korea, potentially in Taiwan. We are continually taking these actions on behalf of what they call our national interests. Decoded, that means the financial interests of multinational corporations and banks. Has nothing to do with the national security of this country. It will cause the Chinese to greatly increase their nuclear capability. It'll drive a wedge between us and our European allies. It will enormously increase the fear and hatred in the developing nations against the United States government, and therefore vastly increase the nuclear terrorist threat to our people. And it will guarantee eventual nuclear disaster.